Star Wars The Clone Wars has had some very different iterations throughout the decades from the 1980s until the 2020s, and probably will have more changes in other versions in the next few decades. And that's what this video is all about, as you saw the title and clicked on it. Anyway, the versions that I'm going to be comparing are the 1986 version, the 1990s interpretations, 2003 to 2008 versions, the Clone Wars show itself, and what comments went along with each version, as well as the Disney changes. With that, let's get into the video. Starting with the 1980s, after the release of Return of the Jedi, the Kenner Toy Company pitched the idea of a Clone Wars show in 1984 to be released in 1986, called Star Wars The Epic Continues. In this version, the Mad Cloner at the Prime had created a clone army to attack the galaxy, which had kicked off the Clone Wars. He also may have played a role in Palpatine's ascension to the role of Emperor, but whatever happened with the rise of the Empire, Prime would have been exiled into the unknown regions with his army for doing something that Palpatine didn't like. Additionally, during his time in exile, Prime had perfected his cloning experiments and was just waiting for the right time to reinvade the galaxy and kick off a second Clone Wars. This is something that he would do in the planned Star Wars The Epic Continues, but that's something beyond how the Clone Wars had been before the Galactic Civil War was interpreted in the 1980s. All that is known in the 1980s is that Prime had a clone army, and there was a massive war, and the Empire had spawned as a result of it. The 1990s witnessed the Thrawn trilogy as the first major piece of the expanded universe to really tackle the idea of the Clone Wars, where a lot of it is alluded to with a few direct statements about the war. So here the war took place at around 60 BBY, and there was a mad clone army that was sent to attack the galaxy and the Republic. Also, the clone army was created using Spar-T cloning chambers, which Palpatine had stored in Mount Tantus on Wayland. Additionally, the Republic had been spending great amounts of money on military endeavors, such as the Katana fleet, which to them disappeared without a trace. The war had also been very destructive to the galaxy, and the memory of it was still living on in the following generations. Even to the point where former Emperor's Hand, Mara Jade, would team up with the New Republic and Luke Skywalker to foil Thrawn's use of cloning to replenish his numbers. What else is given is that there was a battle over the planet of Honogre, where the planet's ecosystem was poisoned by the chemical trihexylophene 1138 from a crash. After the war, the Empire would come to the planet of Honogre and promise to fix the ecosystem in exchange for Noghri servitude. The idea of a clone army attacking the galaxy would remain prevalent until 2002, with the release of the Attack of the Clones movie. The Battle of Dryton is another aspect of the Clone Wars that was touched on in the 90s, where all the information that was given about the battle was that it took place in the Dryton Nebula over Stygium crystals, which were critical in cloaking ships. Anyway, during the battle, all forces were destroyed and there were no survivors. 2002, of course, would see the release of Attack the Clones, where the Clone Wars began officially in 22 BBY. I don't think I really need to explain much about the Clone Wars here, but the Clone Army is fighting for the Republic instead of against it. The Jedi are also generals in the Grand Army of the Republic, and Palpatine is secretly running both sides. You've most likely seen the movie and know what's up. The 2003 2D Clone Wars show was the first televised showing of the events that happened during the Clone Wars, with battles like Munilus and ARC Trooper Captain Fordo hunting General Grievous on Hypori. I mean, is there really too much to explain here as well? Like, it's to follow up the Attack of the Clones and its awesomeness. If you haven't already watched it, it's like 2 hours long. Spend your life wisely and go check it out. Cool. The 2004 Dark Horse Comics took on a pretty gritty look at the Clone Wars. There were battles like Honogre and Jabim where heavy casualties were pretty graphically shown, and the Jedi definitely weren't the greatest wartime leaders, and some of them were pretty big idiots. Alpha 17 was amazing throughout and, openly disobeyed orders and talked trash to his chain of command. That part gives me hope in life. Anyway, it is still, in my opinion, the most brutal take on the Clone Wars that was ever created. There's even things like gas attacks, torture, and more. After the release of Revenge of the Sith in 2005, Clone Wars comics primarily focused on the later stage of the war to the point of Order 66, as well as its immediate aftermath. It wasn't just comics, though. Hasbro's clone action figures released in 2005 and 2006 definitely added to the Clone Wars lore, such as new battalions and commanders to promote Revenge of the Sith. Then came comic packs with action figures where clone commanders like Faye, Keller, and more were introduced and had full stories in the time of Revenge of the Sith. Here, the war is presented in a similar fashion to the 2004 comics. However, Order 66 is part of a greater command structure where the clones obey without question. Some commanders, such as Bakara and Neo, were even in full support of Order 66, while others were not, but would still execute it. Additionally, this time from 2005 to 2007 would witness the Republic Commandos novels, which saw the Clone Wars have the Republic as lesser of a positive government and lean somewhat into the grayer areas, where, for example, the Kaminoans wanted to exterminate the Null Arcs when they were just children because they were thought to have been defective. Also, special operations were a major aspect of the Clone Wars, which is explored here, and lore-wise, the changes to the Clone Wars are that Order 66 and its immediate aftermath would see clones, including Omega Squad, go to Mandalore, which became a safe haven for clones leaving the Empire. This is something that would not appear in any other piece of the Clone Wars. Then came the 2008 Clone Wars movie and following TV show, which are both pretty awesome. I don't think I need to explain the 2008 Clone Wars show, it's pretty great and all of the battles are amazing. The show started pretty lighthearted and then got more gritty as the seasons went on and progressed and got even better than it already was. Major change here is that now Order 66 is initiated through the inhibitor chips instead of through an organized command structure that the clones would have to obey. Comics released in this time, from 2008 to around 2015, were relatively similar to the show with storylines and plots. There was even one where a battle droid executed Order 99 and turned on the Separatist cause instead of Order 66 where the clones turned on the Republic, which was pretty cool to see. Now in the Disney era of the Clone Wars, a lot of previous expanded universe content has been cut from Star Wars canon and is considered legends. Basically, if it's not on the big screen, then it's not real and didn't technically happen. But one thing has remained consistent throughout all of these interpretations of the Clone Wars, and that is that the clones are way cooler than the Jedi. And that is all of the versions of Star Wars The Clone Wars until 2025 compared. What version is your favorite? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.